I always say, if you're not having fun and we're not making money for the owner, we can't have a team. We got to make money for the owner and we got to have fun. It's every one of us, our success comes down to simplicity of showing up. And sometimes talking more than you listen, sometimes listening more than you talk. To this day, like if my company's hired, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I want you to say wow when we're done. I don't want you to say thank you. I want you to say wow.
Hey everyone, welcome to Broadcast Your Authority with Tamara Thompson. I'm your host. And this show is all about broadcasting your authority, your influence, but also sharing more about your passion and what you're doing online to build your business and scale your companies. And this show is all about bringing people together. So it's not just about myself as a co-host, but bringing in really awesome co-hosts and experts in their field that we can have these awesome chats together and share a little bit more about what these awesome people are doing in the world today too. And today we have a very special guest of mine. He flew in all the way from New York. We're filming in Las Vegas. And he's a great person. He's a great friend of mine. And he's all about showing up. And this is one of the things that I'm about as well. And Anthony Melchiorri, he's one of the leading hosts, hospitality industry experts around the world. I would probably say he's just number one the hotel guy. So he has had 9 seasons of Hotel Impossible and is currently working on a special project that he's going to be talking about as well. I can't even explain to you what this guy has done in my life to inspire me as a person in growth. And that's what I love to do, is have other people come into my life that I can actually inspire people. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to give his full background story because I'm going to have him do that. So Anthony, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, it's great to be here with everyone. Thank you. You almost made me cry. I cry easily, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, we could do like a regular bio and share your backstory, but I'd love for you to actually do that, because where you started from the ground up. You are like the epitome of like how to build something so strong, especially when it comes to a personal brand. And you share this all the time on keynote speeches. You share some stuff in your book. And when I saw your show originally, I remember reaching out to actually a project that I was actually turned down. I was rejected on, but I had communicated with you. And I was like, you know what? He's going to come back into my life at some point.
You mean when you stalked me for like a year?
I did not stalk you. I'm just really persistent in the follow-up. I don't know about you guys, but like the thing in the follow-up, Yeah. So, I mean, he's all about showing up, and that's what his book's about. We actually have a co-host, Ben Reinberg, here. He has a podcast, I Own It, which is incredible too. And I think you guys actually will hit it off too as well. So,
well, thank you. I remember when you first reached out to me, or I don't remember the first time, but there was something about you. You kept on coming back to me, kept on following up, email, call, and
the persistence.
I don't know if it was going through my agent or my assistant. And eventually you and I started talking. And then I was supposed to go to a volleyball tournament for my daughter. And anybody that knows me, no matter where I'm traveling, I can be in Vietnam, I can be in Europe, I can be in America. I get on a plane. I don't miss anything. I don't miss anything. And I was in Vegas, right? And I think we met in California.
Yes, you took a flight over from Vegas.
Yeah, and I said, I'm going to be in Vegas. I'm going to fly home. So I can't do for my volleyball tournament for my daughter. And now she's playing in college. So I was like, so it was really important that I'm always there supporting her. And you just kept on following up and said, you know what? There's something, if you read the book, Show Up, there's something about my instincts that just kind of overwhelm me sometimes. Like I guess most of us. It's like, stop not trusting your instinct. I said, all right, I need to know this woman.
I think intuition is like one of the biggest things I've learned to follow in my life. What about you guys? Like intuition is like all I follow.
No, it's really important in life and business to follow your intuition, because what ends up happening is you make a lot of great decisions from your intuition when you're questioning something about what you want to do or what you need to do to move forward. Your intuition, that little inner voice, will tell you exactly what you need.
Yeah, and I think it's based also on experiences that you've had. Yeah. And we call it intuition, but I think it's just all those millions of experiences we had with different individuals that your computer that you don't even think about is working faster than your brain. And you're just like, oh, that feels weird. Okay. Now, okay. Yeah, I've been here before. I don't remember where. And it's just one of those moments. And I always say, my new saying the last couple of months is I don't like hanging out with good people. I like hanging out with extraordinary people. And there was something extraordinary about her follow-up. And that's what kind of got us together, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, and you're here today, so I appreciate that. I'm super grateful for that.
You know, it was very fortunate. Like a lot of things, everything happens in Vegas. Have you noticed that recently? Every
It stays in Vegas too.
every meeting, every convention is happening in Vegas. So I actually, I'm fortunate enough that I'm here for a couple of meetings, and I would have flown out anyway.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I think what I loved about hearing your story, though, is like you literally started in the hospitality industry from the bottom and built your way up. Can you tell us a little bit about that for those that might not know who you are at this point, and then how you turned that into actually sharing with people how to actually build a personal brand?
Well, I think the first thing is, you know, and I'm sure we all have similar stories, right? But my story is, well, I was born in Brooklyn to a very strong mom, and my dad died when I was 2. And we didn't have a lot. And my mom was very, very strong, and you didn't play around. So I got that from her, that do things right the first time. And I went in the military because we didn't have money for college. And I joined the Air Force, United States Air Force. And I was very lucky enough to be at Whiteman Air Force Base, which is the stealth bomber base and the missile base. So I was around some pretty sharp people. And then got attached to an Army base where I was actually working for the director of leadership of West Point. He went on to be the director of leadership. And I worked for the gentleman in charge of nuclear assurance for America. So I was around some rock stars early on when I needed it the most. Above reproach people that held you accountable. And I got myself promoted, and, you know, I won some awards, and I got promoted to protocol officer. And I remember a colonel saying to me, who later became a general, he said, do a little more, you go a lot further. So I was an honor guard. I was doing everything. I went to college at night. I got my 4-year bachelor's degree in 3.5 years on base, as I was working on weekends in Overland Park, Kansas, in the hotel business. So I was doing a lot because I was left back twice. My SAT score, if they could have given me 2 numbers instead of 3, I would have gotten it, to the point where I showed my daughter my SAT score, because she had like a very good SAT score, but she was crying because it was so, in her mind, low. And I said, babe, this was my SAT score. She goes, Dad, that was one part of the test. I said, no, that was both part of the test. She goes, dude, I've never heard anyone get anything lower. I said, I'm an overachiever. I have to do, if I'm going to do something, I'll do it right. I get the lowest score. So I was really, and in my book, you'll hear I was in a bad place. So I started going to the Air Force, and it saved my life. It absolutely saved my life. And I learned through my mother, and I learned through the Air Force to do things the right way. And I remember in the Air Force, it was about branding, but I didn't know, no one ever used the word branding. No one ever said it, but it was above reproach. And I remember every person I worked for was above reproach. And so I on the weekends I worked, I was in Missouri at Whiteman Air Force Base, but then I would drive up an hour and a half to Overland Park, Kansas, and work at the Embassy Suites. And they were so wonderful to me. And I worked on the weekends. So I was working 7 days a week and going to school at night. Got out, was very fortunate. I went to Honduras, then I came out, and I was very fortunate to get overnight shift or night manager at Embassy Suites at Times Square. I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'll jump all the way forward so we don't spend 5 hours. I remember being in Honduras. I was attached to an Army base in Honduras for 6 months because the colonel wanted me to become an officer, and I needed to take a test. Long story short, I was leaving the Air Force, but I had to stay 6 months to get my results. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to stay. But I was in Honduras, and I was getting out. And I called New York City. I called Embassy Suites, Times Square, that was opening up almost every day. And just by being persistent, and the woman that answered the phone finally realized she knew my brother somehow, that he was doing construction on her father's house. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Next thing I know, I'm a night manager in New York City coming out of the Air Force. And I was fortunate enough to work at turnaround hotels. I became like the Mr. Fix-It of hotels that were difficult to turn around. We did this show for 9 seasons, and I know if you really know the show, because if you know my face, you're like, aren't you the hotel guy? If you know the show a little bit, you're like, hey, Anthony. If you're really a fan, you're like, Anthony Melchiorri. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to spend like an hour with you, because if you know my full name and you can pronounce it, you've been a fan. But so I was just fortunate enough to work at the Plaza, turned around the Algonquin, the Lucerne Hotel, was an asset manager in New York City, developed hotels in New York City. And I was just fortunate enough to not be smart enough to know there were things that I shouldn't have taken on. And I've taken things on, and there was never a project, especially early in my career, I didn't cry about. I didn't say, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no clue.
Where was it the point where you were building your portfolio, building up in the hospitality industry? When was it where like, I want to start a show? Like, where was that point?
I was in my basement, and I was in my man cave, and my wife was sitting next to me, and I put my hands on my face, and she goes, oh, shit. You know Jackie Leeson? He's always got an idea. She goes, now what? I was like, I want to do a television show about teaching people the hotel business. So, I don't know. Again, I was too dumb to realize that that's kind of a big thing. But I remember I wanted to market myself, and I wanted to do keynote speak. One of my goals was to do keynote speaking. And I have, as you know.
And that's your goal now, too.
I continue to do it. But what's so funny is, I think you know that I have horrible stage fright. Horrible. Not on TV, not on doing things like this, but like when I get, now I don't at all. I can get on any stage and not feel nervous. But I mean, paralyzing to the point where I would leave. I mean, the check would be in the mail. I'd be paid. I'd fly over, and I'd just be in the back, and I'd be like literally about to faint. And I worked with someone to help me that would come on as my moderator and would help me. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, I'm good. And I was doing something for one of the big brands, and a lot of people, thousands of people in the audience. And that was the moment I got on stage, and after I got a really nice applause, I was like, I don't need to moderate anymore. I got this. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? But it took years.
What was the driving force? I'm just curious. It's like you go like, I don't like alligators. I'm not going to like dive in the alligator water. Like, what was the thing that made you go, I'm deathly afraid of this, but I want to go do it?
I think at 40, you wake up in the morning and you're like, I have wisdom that young people maybe benefit from. And I got my butt kicked. I still get my butt kicked for so long. And I didn't want people to take the long way. I want to give them shortcuts. So, and it comes down to what we all know, every one of us. Show up on time, be nice to people. If you don't know something, ask a question. And if you do know something, don't be overconfident. Just tell them what you know. It's like a deposition, right? Just the facts. Yeah. And so I wanted people to know there are several things in life you can't learn in school. And if you do those things well, we all want to work around nice people. We all want to work around respectful people. We all want to work around people that don't waste our time. Because if you're a high achiever, you don't really have time, because in your mind, the world's coming to an end, so you better keep going. And you never get to a point where you've made it. I don't even know what that means. You've made it, right? Never. And I think if you do, you're probably overconfident. So I just think I had some wisdom to share. I remember the moment where I've had, fortunately, once we did the show and people knew me, I had some access to things I didn't have access to. And I remember wanting to go to Cornell University. Came out of the military, had my bachelor's degree, and I applied because even though I did bad in high school, I did well in college. And I applied, and they said, you need 5 years experience before you go for your master's degree. I didn't have 5 years experience. So I said, I'll come back in 5 years. Well, I never went back. And then I got asked to do a class about after I spoke a lot at Cornell, to do a class about personal branding at Cornell. And I did the class. It was one of the best class, number one classes online. And I remember someone, I won't say who, someone from Cornell. As soon as they met me, they gave me a hug and they said, "Thank you for getting people to come to come to hospitality schools." That our show started to push people to go to hospitality school. I went in the bathroom and I couldn't stop crying. Like I literally couldn't get control of myself. And I had to go shoot 32 videos and I couldn't get control of myself. And that was the moment. I can cry thinking about it. I was like, how did I go from this kid that couldn't get out of first grade and then 12th grade, I got left back in 12th grade, had a horrible SAT score. How is this kid influencing people to go to Cornell? Mm-hmm. And I have beautiful stories. I can keep you busy for the next 2 hours telling you about students around the country that went to school because of our show. So
Awesome.
it's just, just keep working.
Well, like you said in your book, you showed up, and you're also encouraging other people to show up on that side.
The name of the book originally, it took me 10 years to write the book. And I wrote it with my co-author, John Walcott. And if it wasn't for him, the book wouldn't come out. Every word in there is mine, but he really helped me get it out of me. And the first shot at it, there was no voice. I gave it to my wife. I said, she's a reader. She's a pre-K teacher for 30 years. She was a librarian. I said, I don't trust anybody but you. Read the book. And I said, if you like it, I was going on a business trip. Let me know. If you don't like it, let me know. It's a bucket of crap. And she said nice words because she doesn't talk like I talk. And she said, this isn't you. This isn't your book. This isn't your voice. I don't know what this is, but it's not you. We went back to work and we finally got it in my voice. And I said, thank you for letting me get it in my voice. I got the name of the book. And she goes, what's the name of the book? I said, Get Your Head Out of Your Ass. And she goes, you can't use that title. She goes, that is not you. Don't do that. She goes, you can't do that. I said, no, it's going to be a great title. And eventually I said no. And then one day, I don't know where I was talking to John, my co-author, and I was just like, you know what? I always tell kids when people are, I don't like whiners. I'm sure none of us like whiners, right? And when people start like, oh, it's not fair. It's that. Oh man, I love the not fair people, right? And I just said, show up, put your pants on, and walk out of your house, and you'll figure it out. Just show up. Just be in the room. Just show, wherever it is, just show up. Even if you've been invited, just knock on the door and see if somebody will let you in. And one of the things I learned is people want to help you. True. If you're kind, people want to help you. So just show up. And that was the name of the book. And it's the 5 steps of getting out of your own way.
I love
Get
that.
your head out of your ass.
Get your 5 steps of getting your head out. Well,
there's a quote in here where he says, take the ass out of assertiveness.
Yeah.
So specifically a quote.
And it really is, it's simple. It's every one of us, our success comes down to simplicity of showing up.
I agree.
And, and sometimes talking more than you listen, sometimes listening more than you talk.
Well, hey, everybody on this show today showed up, and they showed up in person.
On time.
It's so well said what Anthony just said, because being in commercial real estate like you are, Anthony, I am as well, is showing up every day. Not every day is perfect. You got to look at a lot of deals. In your business, if you're developing or you're acquiring a hotel, there's so many nuances and variables that go on in a deal, and you have to show up every day. You have to be persistent. You have to keep following up, which we just mentioned as well. So I really appreciate, as a commercial real estate owner around the United States, to say show up, because you have to show up. You have to show up for your employees. You have to show up for the people that rely on you. And so it's well said to me. So walk me through your being in the Air Force. How did that impact you and your work ethic and developing into your character on Hotel Impossible, as well as being able to oversee and acquire and own hotels?
Well, thank you very much. And I get paid to be a consultant on a lot of projects. So I've had ownership in hotels, but I mostly go and help people develop it and get them out of their own way and make sure they don't spend $1 billion on something. We just had a major project that we really help people save millions of dollars. So my experience has been development and operations and finance. And if you have all those 3 experiences, you save people a lot of money. But I would say when I was in the Air Force, I was petrified when I was in basic training that I'd get thrown out and go back to Brooklyn. And I didn't have a lot going on in Brooklyn. So I remember that there was these guys that would step up, and they would be squadron leaders. And I'm like barely can put my underwear on and my boots. How are you leading a squadron? You just got in basic training like I did. How did this happen? Like this guy, like were you the captain of your volleyball team or baseball team? Like I was, riding the bench all the time. So I didn't have that I was very, very insecure. And I saw that when I did something, I would get a little pat on the back. There's a story in the book, I think it's in the book, about I folded my underwear drawer better than anybody else in the squadron, and I got accolades for it. And that was the only time anyone's patted me on the back, and he said I had the best underwear drawer in the squadron. So literally, it was that simple to engage my ego, to engage, I folded my underwear. Maybe what else can I do right? And that really started. They really start with basics to take people and really develop their confidence. And then I realized, and when I had the colonel say, do a little more, you go a lot further, I did. And I was like winning this award. And then all of a sudden I got my college degree in 3.5 years at night. Who does that? And I was working on the weekends, and it just seemed that all I had to do is show up and do a little bit more work. I always say, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, please leave the room. So I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but I'm the guy that can read a room. I think if I have a superpower, I read a room faster than anybody. And so I've always had that thing. And I think because I was on an Air Force base where if you make a mistake, even though all I did is pour coffee as a protocol officer and made sure everybody was on time, I remember a colonel walking out of the stealth base bomber was coming to the base. So they're doing all these meetings, and I'm just there in this kind of secret place, pouring coffee, and he left. And 2 hours later, he came back, and weeks later, I said, Colonel, when you left for those 2 hours in that meeting, what'd you leave for? He goes, there was just some kind of issue with nuclear weapon. They thought the nuclear weapon was being loaded, and it was just a computer error or something like that. But he came in and left like he was just going to get a glass of water. And so I was around rock stars, and it just taught me, I'm not dealing with nuclear weapons. So I guess just through that experience, and then watching my mom raise 3 kids in Brooklyn after my dad died, it's just no excuses, man. Just shut up and do your job. To this day, just shut up and do your job, and meaning me, and add value to people.
Yeah.
Like when I go on a project, it could be a $10 million project, or I was on something recently, it was a $600 million project. And I build my team. So if you hire me to come on, I build a team specifically for that job. Yeah. And the people I build are the best in the world. And I remember somebody saying to me, it's like, I've never had anybody do exactly what they said they were going to do. Like, you did everything you said you were going to do. So to this day, like, if my company is hired, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I want you to say wow when we're done. I don't want you to say thank you. I want you to say wow.
I love that. Yeah, we're coming up on the tail end of this episode. But I do want to keep going because everything that he says is amazing, and you can read the book, and he says a whole lot of other stories too. What's your last question?
Quick question. Since you work with teams, and hospitality is all about connecting with people, letting them know that they matter, that they're special, how do you factor in the mental health piece? Because it's such a huge, it's a huge foundational piece of working in the hospitality industry.
My mental health or people I work around?
The people you work around, and the people that the guests that come and stay in the hotels.
Well, I think everybody wants to be listened to. When I was coming up in this business, I was not a nice person to deal with. I'm not a mean person. I've never been mean. If somebody, I was the kid that always jumped in the fight first to protect somebody else. So I'm not mean, but like if you work for me, I wasn't easy to work with. And I remember a guy saying to me, so I'm going to get to your question, but I terminated him. He was at the Plaza Hotel, and I fired him. And I was not a nice person. I probably just was so insecure back then, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And he was terminated. He comes upstairs to my office, and he's standing in the doorway, and tall guy, and he's in his civilian clothes. I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you left. And he said, I deserve to be terminated because I showed up late and whatever it was. I can't remember. He said, but you took my spirit. And my spirit doesn't belong to you. Wow. Oh my God. He gave me my career. At that moment, he gave me my career because I was affecting his mental health. I was affecting him, not his performance. And I was making his performance, my insecurity was in overdrive because I was like, oh, if he makes a mistake, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to look stupid. Instead of just behaving the way a manager should behave. And he saved my career. That moment saved my career. So I'm always, I love, running hotels. I love housekeepers. A housekeeper comes in a day, and he or she is cleaning 12 rooms, 13 rooms, 18 rooms, and then goes home when their children come home from school, and they do homework, and then they do whatever else they do, cooking and cleaning. And then they come back at 5 o'clock in the morning and do it again. And if you ever clean a hotel room? Okay. Would you ever want to do that again?
Never.
Right. I cried the first time at Overland Park, Kansas when I did it because it took me like 3 hours to clean one room. So it's taking me 42 minutes. And they came in and found like something on the mirror, and there's like the room failed. I was like, what do you mean it failed? It's like, and I was the manager in training. And so, I've always been very sensitive to people's, I don't know if I think about it in mental health, but just sensitive to them, that if they don't have the tools and they don't have, I always say, if you're not having fun and we're not making money for the owner, we can't have a team. We got to make money for the owner and we got to have fun. Those two things, everybody else runs. I remember I throw the best Christmas parties for when I run hotels. And to this day, I walk into people and like, remember that Christmas party we did in Orlando? I said, yeah. Remember that Christmas party we did in New York? I said, yeah. So to me, it's always about thinking about them, thinking about, can they pay their mortgage? Can they pay their rent? Are they there for their child? You know, I remember real quick, and I know we got to go, but 9/11.
You're always thinking about people first, and that's what I love about you.
Thank you. And on 9/11, I remember I was in New York City. I was running a hotel, and all the housekeepers, some lived in the Bronx, some lived in Brooklyn, and some people couldn't get off the island, but some people could stay in Manhattan, and their kids went to school uptown, whatever it was. And I remember I let everybody go. I said, everybody go. We'll just put a letter in the room to the guests saying, hey, you're not getting your room cleaned or whatever. It was literally an hour after 9/11. And I remember the owner saying to me, you can't let the housekeepers go. Like, we have to clean the rooms. And I remember saying, I quit. I'm done. So what are you talking about? I said, it's not even like, I just remember, like, it was like almost like matter of fact. It's like, no, we're all leaving. I didn't leave, but I was like, if you say that, I'm leaving too. Like, what are you talking about? Like just go wherever you're going. Leave me alone. What do you mean we're not going to let the housekeepers go? They have to go see if their kids are okay. And I just remember that moment. I was like, son of a, and I love that owner. Outside of that, he's always been good to me. I have nothing bad to say about it. But that moment, I was like, what are you talking about? The business could fall apart right now. Like, you have insurance for that. These people are petrified. And we all knew where we were on 9/11. And it was a moment that we'll never forget. And it was petrifying. To say cleaning that room is more important than the housekeeper and their family and making sure their kids are okay. So I've always been that guy. I've always been the guy that's like, I'm not afraid to lose my job over my opinion, if I know I'm right. Which, you know, if you ask my wife, I'm never right.
Mine too. It's okay.
Well, I appreciate you. I could talk for hours with you, Anthony. And like I said, I appreciate you. The first thing that he ever does when he gives me a call is he asks how I'm doing, how my family's doing, how my mom's doing, how the team's doing. Never about him. It's always about who he's speaking to. And I love that aspect about it. I respect him tremendously. And those of you that haven't read this book yet, show up. I believe you can still get the autographed copy version. Yes.
You can get it on Amazon. Bestseller. Amazon.
Bestseller. Yes.
Or you can get it just through my website. Or shopanthonymelchiorri.com and you get an autographed copy.
I love it. Well, when this airs, we'll be sure to send out and make sure to follow him on Instagram, Anthony Hotels. And he's all over the place for different things. And definitely check out his podcast too. No Vacancy Live. We do it 3 days a week. And we have the people from really business, but specifically hospitality, from presidents of major brands to Horst Schulze, who invented Ritz-Carlton, to the gentleman who invented the Four Seasons, and on up and down. And we have a new show coming out called Hotel All-Stars. That's one of the reasons I'm here in Vegas. Hopefully you'll be seeing one of our hotels in Vegas on the show. And basically Hotel All-Stars is to get people in our industry that don't know about our industry. So my casting producer, I said, I want a deer in the headlights. I don't want to, we just did the Breakers Hotel. And we just finished actually editing it. And the Breakers in Palm Springs, Palm Beach. And I remember saying, I don't want a kid that went to the Palm Springs with their family. I don't want a kid that worked at Breakers. I don't want a kid that worked at the Breakers. I want a kid that has no idea that this exists, that you can work at this level of hotel. Like, I want deer in the headlights. So we put that show together. We did two episodes so far, and hopefully we'll have a season. And we've actually financed it privately, which is very amazing.
Difficult to do in the TV business. And so we're on our way to getting it probably on TV by first quarter 2024. Well, thank you, Anthony, for being here today. And thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning into the show. Be sure to subscribe, ring that bell. Be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcast to broadcast your authority. See you in the next episode.